Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the 59th episode of Stories of Service, ordinary people who do extraordinary work. And I am the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter. And once again, we have another amazing guest on this episode. I do apologize. We had a little technical difficulties earlier, but I think we've got those resolved. So, how are you doing, Suzanna?
Teresa, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. And again, I want to thank you so much for having the Stories of Service podcast. I have watched you grow from, really a small passion project to now we're at the 59th episode. I cannot believe it. And you really show a variety of people with many different backgrounds and stories. And so I'm really honored to be a part of this.
Well, I'm honored to have you, and I can't wait to hear more of your story. And so, what I'm going to do, and as I always do, is I'm going to start off just reading a little bit about you and what we're going to talk about. And then I'm just going to go right into the questions. If you guys are joining us from YouTube, I see Joy right there. Please
Great.
hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button as well, so you'll be notified for future episodes. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. And the one thing that we are going to talk about today is what it's like to work directly with the U.S. State Department, but then also have the tenacity to fight for what you do best. Today, we're going to hear from Captain Suzanna Brugler, who, after 5 tries, got what she desired. Her story is one of determination and one that it shows it's never too late to quit on what you really want in life. She is a native of Defiance, Ohio, graduating from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1998. She holds a master's degree in defense and strategic studies with a focus on international relations and African studies from the U.S. Naval War College. She graduated from Defense Information School, Defense Institute of Security Cooperation, Joint Special Operations University, and Defense Security Cooperation University. She started her career, like myself, as a surface warfare officer, serving aboard USS Mobile Bay in Yokosuka, Japan. And then, after qualifying as a surface warfare officer, she lat transferred to public affairs. And in January 2002, she deployed to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to facilitate media coverage of the first detainee flights from Afghanistan. She's taught the public affairs qualification course in Fort Meade before her serving on her last tour on active duty as director of the Navy Office of Information East in New York City. While there, she served as chief of public affairs for the commissioning of USS New York, which was a ship built with 7.5 tons of steel recovered from the World Trade Center after the September 11th terrorist attacks. In 2011, she transferred to the Navy Reserves and served as the Africa Partnership Station PAO for U.S. 6th Fleet. Subsequent tours include serving as the Congressional Liaison Coordinator at NATO Headquarters Supreme Allied Commander Transformation in Norfolk, Virginia. In Norfolk, Virginia. Executive Officer of the Naval Reserve, Chief of Navy Information Headquarters Unit at the Pentagon, and Director of Naval Reserve Naval Special Warfare Public Affairs with NSW Group 11 in Coronado, California. In May 2017, she again laterally transferred to the Navy Reserve component of the Foreign Area Officer Community and served as the Naval Reserve Foreign Area Officer Africa Regional Lead assigned to U.S. Africa Command in Stuttgart, Germany. In 2021, she mobilized for 1 year as the liaison officer for Commander U.S. Naval Forces Central Command 5th Fleet. She was called to serve as the interagency coordinator for Task Force 58, the contingency task force that was stood up to facilitate 7,709 Afghan refugees from Kabul to the U.S. during the non-combatant emergency operations Allies Refuge. She finished her NAVSAT mobilization this past May, serving as an inaugural member of the Commander Initiatives Group, advising the commander on global and regional strategic initiatives. In this role, she conceived of and led the first bilateral Women in Uniform Leadership Exchange with the Bahrainians, an event that fostered shared experiences and mutual understanding. Welcome.
Teresa, thank you. Thanks again.
So I always try to start off the questions with the most basic question for many of us who served in the United States military, and that is, being that you weren't really from a military town, what inspired you to join the service?
Well, I entered the service through the U.S. Naval Academy, and I have my parents to thank for that. They were both educators in a small town, Defiance, Ohio, where I'm from, and they still live. They had 4 children, and they told us, we do expect you to go to college. We will help you with that, but you have to go to a state school. And I always had this drive that I not only wanted to get out of Defiance, but I wanted to get out of Ohio and sort of experience the world. And so the Navy was a natural fit for that. But really, it was my parents that gave me that idea. They went on a recruiter's visit to the Naval Academy and told me it was like summer camp. It's a little different than summer camp, but it did get me interested, and it got me on the path to a career and a lifetime of service.
How did going to the Naval Academy, prep you for being in the Navy?
I It Going to the Naval Academy first and foremost is an extraordinary honor and experience and opportunity for anybody who goes there. What I love about it is that people from all 50 states, from territories such as from Puerto Rico, they all have representation there. So you really go and you are in a diverse field and a very competitive environment. But I like to tell people that I had always had the drive that I thought since I was very young, I really wanted to do something extraordinary with my life. And because the Naval Academy led me to service in the Navy has made my life beyond extraordinary and ways that I never even dreamed of or conceived of serving, doing the things that I've done. So I'm so grateful to not only the Naval Academy, but also to the Navy.
That's amazing. That's so outstanding. And so you started your career as a surface warfare officer. Did you know when you were going through your SWO training, or when did you decide that you wanted to become a communicator, and what was it
Yeah.
that led you down that road?
So I did an internship while I was still a midshipman at the Naval Academy. I did an internship at the public affairs office at the Naval Academy. So I had that seed planted that I thought, because I just wanted to be a midshipman. I had no idea what I was going to do in the Navy. So when I served in the public affairs office there, I thought, oh, this is it. I'm going to be a public affairs officer. Like, this is my calling. I mean, this is definitely, how I can serve, provide my best for the U.S. Navy. So I always had that in the back of my mind. But when you go to a service academy, you must select a warfare designator. So surface warfare was really it for me. I guess surface warfare selected me. I think that's a great way to put it, because it's true. And because I was going to be on a ship, I selected an Aegis cruiser out of Yokosuka. I had this wanderlust. I wanted to see the world. That's why I chose Yokosuka. I wanted to be on the best, type of ship, and I knew that the crew des was the way to go. They were the ones that were out there, serving in a very unique capacity. So that's what I chose. What I didn't know is how my surface warfare tour, and I only did one because I lateral transferred immediately after my first division officer tour, but that really has formed the backbone of me as a naval officer, me as a leader, and also has just given me incredible capability and integrity in what I'm talking about, not only as a communicator when I served as a public affairs officer, but also as a foreign area officer. I am able to, talk to our partner nations from the perspective of actually having served aboard ships, having stood the watch, having sailed, in the open waters, and that is incredibly valuable for me.
Your journey is so unique, Susanna, because I don't talk to very many people who have had such a varied career in the military, where you
Yeah.
started off, you know, being a ship driver, and then you went to public affairs, and then now you're doing diplomacy work. And I think it sounds to me like everything has kind of been a building block to that next step. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would say that. And Teresa, thank you for recognizing that. I have had a varied career. It is an unusual career. I don't know that it can be replicated what I've done. And I don't say that from a position of, like, oh, I don't think anybody could do what I've done. That's not it. But I've just had incredible opportunities. I've been in incredible situations. I've done these things. And again, I owe it to other people, and I owe it to the service, to what the Navy has provided for me, that I've been able to do the things that I've done. So I'm incredibly grateful And yeah, it was a varied career. I will tell you this, and this might make a little sense. When I was in high school, we had exchange students at my high school, Defiance Senior High School. And I always had this idea, I thought it was the neatest thing. I loved interacting with them. And I myself wanted to be an exchange student. But once again, my parents were teachers. They had 4 children. They couldn't afford to send me to Europe for a year to study during high school. And I didn't love that answer, but I understood it. And so I sort of wanted to create that experience, which I ended up doing when I left active duty after 12 and a half years, which is a little unusual. I followed an Olmsted scholar to Spain, and I did it because and it was in my mid 30s. It wasn't in my mid teens, but I did it in my mid 30s. And I had that experience. I did make that happen for myself.
So, what led to your decision to leave active duty? What was
Yeah.
driving you down that road?
Yeah, that's a great question, Teresa, because I served, like I said, one tour as a surface warfare officer. I lateral transferred into the public affairs community, which is an incredible community to be a part of. Many people, I think, want to become PAOs, and not everybody gets the opportunity to do it. Perhaps because I had known when I was a midshipman that I wanted to do it, I was able to kind of cultivate a career path where I could get into it right away after I got my warfare qualification. But I had done it for a good long while, and to the public affairs community's credit, like, they had given me great opportunities to serve as a PAO. I served as a career department head, a department head of the media department.
Mhm.
I had served in the Navy Office of Information East, and I headed the communications component of the commissioning of USS New York. I worked with the incredible entities in New York City at a time when Mayor Bloomberg was mayor, and I mean, it was an incredible experience. And I kind of thought, um, rather naively, in my early to mid 30s, well, what am I going to do to top this? I've done all these cool things. And there's also another important perspective. Communications back in 2009, 2010, and the public affairs field within the Navy is not what it is today. Back then, social media, let's all take a trip back in time, but social media was just starting. And I don't think our senior leaders in the military quite understood the gravity and the depth and the strategic significance of communications back then. It is much different today. So I wasn't able to look into the future. I mean, I'm not clairvoyant. I didn't see that with time. I think the public affairs career field would kind of rise to the strategic significance that it has today. And so it was sort of some personal decisions. In my personal life, I was a divorcee, and so I didn't have a family that I was taking care of. And I knew I was at a moment in time that if I wanted to make a change and try something different, and I'm a curious person, just naturally, I'm curious. I think that's how I've been able to do 3 different designators. I thought that was the time to do it. I do want to give a plug, though, because it was in its infancy, the Career Intermission Program, or CIP. I think had the CIP been established like it is today, I would have taken it, because I just at 12 and a half years, I just needed a break from the Navy to understand, what I know now. But I didn't know
Right.
it back then. I was younger, so I was definitely more naive, not nearly as experienced as I am now. And that's how my career went.
Wow. So, what were some of the roles that you filled in your civilian life? Because now you're on this whole other journey. Now you're in your 30s, you're single. So what is it that you start to do, and where do you see your life going at this point?
Yeah, great question. I can tell you're a communicator. so, so what I did, and I think it can happen to a lot of people. I'm not saying it necessarily does, but I think a lot of naval officers that I've been in touch with, if they decide to get out, they may go to law school, or they may go to business school, like, or they may go to med school. Like, they know exactly what they want to do outside of the Navy. That's one group. And then there's another group, and it's the group that I fell in, which was, I had no idea. I didn't have a definite plan to, how my life was going to look. I didn't know how it was going to look when I got out of the Navy. I just knew that I wanted to try something different. So what that led, when I told you I had decided at some point in my last year on active duty that I was going to follow this Olmsted scholar. She was very gracious. She helped me get into a university where she was studying at the University of Cadiz, which is in Spain near Rota. And I strategically went there so that I knew I was becoming a reservist, so I could do reserve work out of Rota. I started to do public affairs for Africa Partnership Station. So in that year in Cadiz, I actually spent 2.5 months traveling. And I was living on my post 9/11 GI Bill. So I was living on a student stipend, but I was traveling to Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, Mauritius, and I was getting paid 04 pay. I thought, this is incredible. I mean, I would pay to do what I'm doing serving the Navy, and I'm getting, so I really relished, that was probably one of the personally happiest times of my life, and the following year I had a great opportunity. I was able to join US 6th Fleet. I moved to Naples from Rota, and in Naples, Italy, I continued the APS mission. And what I would do is I would go to the US embassies, and I would I would work with them before we would have ships pull into these coastal African nations. And so it was a dream. But to bring back to answer your question, because I'm getting a little bit off tangent, but I entered eventually, after I served at NATO ACT, I entered civilian service for the Navy as a public affairs officer. So I essentially was doing what I had done in uniform, but I was serving in a different way, and it was in government service. I personally found it wasn't enough for me because I knew by then, and about 18 months after I left active duty, I knew that I missed it, and I missed it a lot. And at first I tried to ignore how much I missed serving in uniform and being on active duty. But as we know, as you and I both know, as time wore on, it became more and more apparent that I had invested a lot of time, and I had invested a lot of myself. I had my years at the Naval Academy that I'm not even counting in these 12 and a half years of prior active duty experience. And I began to recognize I really truly desired for me to go back on and to serve on active duty to finish my career.
Wow. That's incredible. Was it good? Was it hard because if you're already on reserves, I mean, it always depends on sort of what the timing is and the needs of the Navy. Was that difficult for you to go back on active duty after being in the reserves?
It wasn't difficult to go back on active duty. As a reservist, we have various opportunities throughout our career to go back and serve on active duty. Now, I did that over this past year. What brought me to serve on at this point now, let's catch everybody up. I'm married and I have two young children, but I wasn't making the promotion milestone that I really wanted to make. So in order to give myself the best chance, and this is in my reserve career, to give myself the best chance to make the promotion milestone, which is 06, which I am now. Very grateful that I did make it.
Congratulations.
But I served on active duty at the US 5th Fleet. And that year, away from my family, which was probably the hardest personal decision of my life, but it transformed the opportunities for me, and it helped me reach my all-time goal, which was number one, to make 06, which I made this past year on my 5th look. And then number two, to go back on permanent active duty, which as of this past week I have done. So I am now a 1710. I am back on permanent active duty. I will finish my naval career as an active duty service member. I, without sounding Pollyanna-ish, because it took a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears to do it, but I really am living my dream right now, and I'm so grateful for it.
That's amazing. What was the hardest part of getting through this process? I mean, you said 5 times.
Yes.
It must have been like around the 3rd try, you must have just been like, "What else can I do?" What was
Yeah,
it?
it's so
Yeah. So tell me a little
so
bit.
I'll try to explain a little bit about what it was like. So we sort of skipped over. I skipped over, quite frankly, when I shifted from being a public affairs officer to becoming a foreign area officer. And I had known that I wanted to be a FAO, but the Navy Reserve didn't have a FAO community. When we did this new community, and we've only been in existence for maybe 6 or 7 years, when that came about, I had my eye on it. I wanted to do it. I applied the first time there was a board, because there were 2 boards on an annual basis that formed the foundation of roughly 50 officers in the community. So the first board, I wasn't selected, and I was, there were some prerequisites that I had been working on, but weren't completed yet. So the second board, I did get picked up, but however, that board where I got picked up, I was pregnant with my second son, and 6 months later, after I changed to be a FAO, because the public affairs community is quick in their advancements, they do have, I think, an earlier sort of a leg up on other communities. I was a senior 05, and immediately I was considered for 06. So I had been a FAO for 6 months, and it was my first look at Navy captain. Everybody else who was being considered got selected on that first board. So they had at least 1 or 2 FAO fit reps. I had 0 FAO fit reps, and I was up for my first look. Add the complexity of having a newborn and then being in all of a sudden a career field where you are expected to go overseas and serve in U.S. embassies. Awesome work, like excellent work. Love it. Love what FAOs do. But personally, for me at that point in time, when I was breastfeeding my son, I wasn't in the capacity where I could just take off for 2 weeks or 2 months and serve overseas at a U.S. embassy. I wasn't in that space where I could do that. So
Right.
it was funny you said the third look, because it was the third look when I wasn't selected, when I really did that internal deep dive in myself and asked myself, Suzanna, do you want to do what it takes, which is, in my mind, was to take this deployment, the mobilization, an unaccompanied tour, go to the Fifth Fleet AOR, and like, are you up for that? Because if you're not, you probably won't make captain. So I had that heart to heart with myself, and I chose I was going to go for it.
Wow. That is a tough decision too, because no matter how you look at it, you're going to have to make a sacrifice somewhere. And so it's just a matter of what it is you're willing to sacrifice versus what it is you're willing to just keep on going for, no matter what.
Right.
Because if you have it in your mind, but it sounds like you were always sort of one step ahead of where you felt you needed to be, because you were always sort of thinking ahead. You may not have known where the road was gonna end, but you kind of had a general direction. I mean, that's what I'm sensing as I'm hearing your story. You would choose locations and choose things to sort of drive you to a certain point, and then
Yeah.
sort of let life dictate what, and have a little bit of chance thrown in there and opportunity as well. But you definitely thought through where this path would go.
Yeah, like you said, I didn't know where it was leading, but Teresa, somewhere along the way, I kind of recognized I am the best in the world at being Suzanna Brugler and making, decisions and knowing what Suzanna Brugler, can contribute, and what my desires are, and I just have to have faith in that. And sometimes it's been challenging. Sometimes I have made a decision and thought, oh my God, what did I do? But with a little bit of faith, I mean, heading to Bahrain and leaving my family. That was one of those times when I first landed, and I'm, in a foreign country, and I'm in a new job, and I'm just like, Susanna, what did you sign yourself up for? But at the end, it all came to a nice finish for me there. Yeah.
What would you say is your strong suit? Like, what would you say is the thing that you bring, because you know yourself very well, it sounds like, and what would you say is, like, that one thing that you can always sort of bring to the table and bring of yourself to an organization?
Well, personal connection is really important to me. So, and I think as communicators, the more we can get to personal connection through many channels, many methods, many ways, then we actually have a higher chance of success of doing our jobs. Same thing in the foreign area officer community. What we're charged with, knowing strategically how to provide, consult, how to interact with our partner nations. And when I say consult, I mean consult to our bosses, to our superiors, to our flag officers, to our fleet commanders. Uh, that personal connection is so important and so crucial. And I think that's something I'm able to provide. I think when people talk to me, they know that they're talking to Suzanna Brugler, and I am telling them my truth and what I know. It might be different from what they see. It might be, and if it is, all the better. It
Sure.
might be a gut check for them, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, I was thinking that," and she's thinking that. Okay, or it might be, I'm going to go the other way. Yeah, and that's fine
Mhm.
too. But I think maybe a level of authenticity is probably, I think, what has served me well.
What would you say was the hardest part of navigating a triple career, and going all these different roads? Because I mean, your story is so similar to my own. It's really
Yeah.
interesting how much of some of the things that you've experienced, and the ways that your career has just gone in all these different directions. It really reminds me of myself, and I'm curious what were some of the challenges? Like, what were some of the hardest
Yeah.
parts of changing your career so many times?
Yes. And I love that you said that, Teresa, because I kind of identified that myself. That's why I asked you for your bio, because I wanted to I was like, there's something there.
Mhm.
So thanks for recognizing that too. Um, you had asked me earlier, and I don't know that I answered it the way exactly I wanted to, which was, you said, well, was it hard for you to serve on active duty? It was hard for me when I recognized that I really wanted to be on active duty. At first, I kept my cards close to my vest, maybe to my detriment. I was a PAO at the time, and maybe I didn't share with the right people because I felt like I had spent too many chips, and it was just going to be like way over the top to tell somebody, hey, I really want to go back on active duty. What do you think? I don't know that the support, or I felt at the time that the support wouldn't have been there, and maybe it would have. I don't know. But that was very challenging for me when I knew I really want to go back. And it took me years to sort of unpeel my armor and just be vulnerable and tell people. And that's what I did to Vice Admiral Cooper at Fifth Fleet. I finally arrived to the point where he's a professional. He's, he when he meets somebody,
Oh,
he
he's
finds
amazing.
out very quickly what makes you tick, and he does it because he wants to know. He's a people person,
Oh,
so
he is. Mhm.
I just laid it out there for him, and he really played a significant role. I mean, I had laid all the groundwork, but he played a significant role in helping me get through these extra hurdles that I needed to go through in order to get to where I am now. I'm so grateful for that. But this is life. This is what makes the world work. Like, again, these personal connections, people who care, people who will invest, people who will, discover, like, hey, I'm worth this. Let's do this. Let's make things happen. That is what makes our Navy so great, because it's everywhere. It's filled with, all ranks, all areas, all designators. There's people everywhere like that. But the hard part for me, definitely, like I said, the serving as a civil servant in the Navy. I later worked for the Department of Treasury and for the IRS, but really knowing that um, I really wanted to be in uniform, that was hard.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's almost like you were called to do this, Susanna. That's really what I feel like. I feel like you're like living your calling, and it's so amazing when I talk to people who really are living their dream. They're doing what they were meant to do, and I can sense that in everything that you're saying. And it's funny you mentioned Vice Admiral Cooper. He was my CO on USS Russell. He's the one I lat
Uh,
transferred to the public affairs community.
oh my
Um,
gosh, yeah,
so he was instrumental in helping me become a PAO. So, it's just interesting. We have a lot of ties, Susanna.
we do.
We really, really do. So now you're an FAO, you're a foreign area officer. What is your when you go to, you're on active duty now, right?
I
Are
am.
you?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where are you posted now?
Yeah, so I'm the plan for me right now. Of course, the needs of the Navy always dictate, where
Yes.
people are going and what they're doing. So I'm at the needs of the Navy right now, my family and I. But I intend to be stashed here in San Diego. This is where I live with my family. We've lived here for the past 8 years, and I'll be here until the summer of 2023. So basically next summer. Right now, it looks like I'm going to be headed down to South America, to the U.S. Embassy in Bogota. Of course, that could change, but that's where I'm slated right now. And I'll be the Navy chief down there. Incredible opportunity, and very humbling. I think the Navy has a lot of faith in me. I'm grateful for it, but at the same time, I'm definitely going to do the prep work now before we get there.
Right, right. So for people who are listening to the show that don't really understand foreign area officers, I showed you that one video. I've already had you're now my second
Yeah,
FAO I've had on the show, so this is
great.
exciting, and I'm fascinated by this career field because I do believe that there is definitely a tie between people who are professional communicators and then people who work as diplomats. I just
Yeah.
feel like that's such a smooth transition, and so for people who are listening to the broadcast that may not be as familiar with FAOs, I think most people understand public affairs, but how would you describe the kind of the day-to-day role of a foreign area officer?
Yes. Well, first of all, our preferred terminology is that we are strategic operators, and we do work in U.S. embassies, but we do work with diplomats for sure. And I think early on in sort of the trajectory of our designator, kind of equating military diplomat, that kind of to get in people's mind what we do. But we provide strategic advantage. We provide specific area regional council and strategic advantage to our commanders. That's what we do. Um, so we foreign area officers work in the line of security cooperation. We work with our partner nations. We communicate, and you hit the nail on the head, Teresa. There's so much overlap, I feel, that I see between public affairs and foreign area officers. And communications is key. It's number one. So for FAO to communicate with our partner nations, we have language specialty because we need to be able to communicate in some form or fashion within the languages of the regions that we are working with our partner navies. We deal with foreign military funding, foreign military sales, excess defense article exchanges. So these are all toolboxes in our toolkit of how we exercise security cooperation. And really, the broader perspective is global security around the world. But we're the regional experts. We provide strategic advantage to our commanders.
Outstanding, and such an important role because you guys also are a lot of times the liaisons for the militaries who are like especially for the port visits and other things that we would do. I remember I'm working with the FAOs on a lot of those initiatives and projects, and I mean they're really the glue that like you said that shows that strategic counsel between the State Department and the military, and it's such a vital role. So do you speak fluent Spanish? Is that why you're going to South America?
Yes. So again, and sort of a hallmark of foreign area officers is we do have to maintain a language proficiency, and we do that through taking the defense proficiency test. I take it annually. Some of our foreign area officers are native foreign language speakers, which I'm so envious of. But I am one. I'm not able to score high enough to take it biannually. I have to take the test annually, and again, and part of my preparations for going down to South America, I will bone up on my Spanish. I did spend a year in Cadiz, and it was a complete self immersion, is what I call it. But
Hmm.
I did pick up Spanish when I was down there. Some incredible people helped me along, and got me to the level where I am fully qualified FAO.
Well, congratulations. I'm so happy for you, Susanna. So I'm going to transition a little bit now to just leadership in general and some of your tried and true methods for leadership and for leading. And I'm curious from your perspective, what is it that you think is the most essential ingredient to effective leadership?
I really think authenticity and being yourself, part of that is learning who you are. And Teresa, I know that you've had your own journey in recognizing that, but when you do it, when you get there, when you thoroughly understand what that is, and that you have a role in the Navy, you have a role in the military, you have a place in this world, and your gifts, you're the only one who can deliver them. I think just by nature, you inspire others to do the same.
I agree. And I think that there's something that everyone can bring to the table using their own unique skills and ability. Sometimes we get locked into thinking there's only one type of person or only one type of thinking about something, and then there's sort of a group think that comes in. But by having people with diverse backgrounds, perspectives, I really do believe that we make the organization better and we can carry the organization forward and get some of that long-term strategic growth that every organization needs. It doesn't matter where you're working. I think every organization has its potential to go further. And part of understanding yourself is knowing, like you said, what are those things that you bring to the table. And authenticity is so important because when you know who you are, you can withstand a certain degree of adversity because you're able to own the things that you could have done differently, and you're able to also to recognize when there were some things that were beyond your control. And I'm sure you've experienced that as well.
Oh, I love that you said that. And I can think of a very specific example where I was being myself, but it wasn't at the appropriate time. And I went back and I owned it. I recognized it. I addressed it with the people who I needed to address it with. And in the end, I think I came out on top. I'll just say that. I think people understood that it was an honest mistake. We are human. We all make mistakes. Let me just give a plug here. I would love to hear more from our senior leadership. How they have overcome their own mistakes. I think it's healthy to, and it's good for learning. It's good for a growth mindset. It's good for getting real and getting better. Definitely, I think that component is so important. And I do want to mention something else that has become really near and dear to me, the more senior. I just put on O6 on October 1st. So I think mentorship is very important. And when I say mentorship, that also expands to recruiting. We are in a strategic environment that we must recruit and maintain and retain the absolute top in various career fields that we employ. So when I hear, and I, because as you identified, I've had such a diverse career, I have many people that come to me and say, Susanna, I think, and a lot of them are interested in public affairs, to be quite frank. A lot of them are interested in foreign area officer. And so they say, you were a PAO, you were a FAO. I think you should talk. I say yes every time. Every time I say yes. And from the conversations I have with these people who think they might be interested in serving, I've learned so much myself. But I mean, we can't afford to ignore people and sort of throw up a wall and say, oh well, you didn't do such and such, so I don't know that you're worthy. I mean, first of all, who are we to say that? But we absolutely need to take seriously, acquiring, the top talent. And so I just want to push that plug, mentoring people who maybe they're not part of our lives yet, or we might not, cross paths professionally up until that point, but lending a year and sort of, just dedicating the time to let them know what the Navy's all about.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And I always try to take the time when I can and where I can to talk to anybody who wants to talk to me about public affairs or about well, now NATO,
Right. Yeah.
all things that I'm associated, or podcasting. I get people who will ask me how to start a podcast, things like that. And I think that that's your duty, is to take
Mhm.
the things that you've been taught, and someone taught me these things. I mean, I went back and forth with people for months about podcasting and about how to get started and all these other things. So when other people come to me and ask those same questions, it's my duty to pass it on. And Amanda Huffman's the same way. She does the Women in the Military podcast, and I've been seeing now that she's starting to do actual courses on teaching podcasting and writing. And she's written a book about women in the military or girls. I have it right here. I'll give her book a plug, but it's just you talk about mentoring. I mean, this is mentoring 101 right
Oh,
there.
that book. Yes, I
Yes,
need that book.
yes.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes.
Yes,
Excellent.
yes. So I don't know if Amanda will watch this, but definitely gonna plug her book, and I'm definitely do a posting on it later. But no, to your point, it's so important, because again, it was bestowed onto us, that type of leadership and mentorship, and so the only thing that we can do is give that back to others, in my view.
Yeah. And I also, Leslie Likens, for the name of me, I can't think of the name of her podcast, but, serving as a reservist, many people don't understand that you're basically serving, uh, you know, two full-time jobs. It's not just, they say 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year. It's such a misnomer. If you're serving as an officer in the reserves, you are pulling double duty, and that can be a real challenge. And I know Leslie goes into great detail about that.
She does. She has an amazing show, and she was also, her and Amanda were the two that really helped me as well when I was getting my show off the ground and had a million questions about how to do this. So, what would you say to someone who is considering joining the public affairs community, or joining FAO, or they want to become a surface warfare officer? Because you really did, you've done so much. What kind of advice? I mean, I'm sure you do get people who come to you. So what are some of the key things that you ask them to keep in mind?
Yeah, I when somebody comes to me, I try to sort of probe them a little bit, and I want to understand what their drive is, what they really are wanting to do. Why are they drawn to the FAO, the Foreign Area Officer, policy fields? Why are they drawn to public affairs? Um, far as being a surface warfare officer, I I haven't had a lot of people ask me about it, but some of us,
Right,
I
right.
have had a few. Sort of, want to hear about my career trajectory, but yeah, I try to get to that core, like what is driving them, before I can kind of lend them, well, this, I mean, because there's some hard data that I'm able to give them of what their, for example, their prospects of promotion might be if they're in one community as
Mhm.
opposed to another. And you might not realize it's important now, but I can, if you're anything like me, which they might not be, but if they are, the more time they put into something and the more senior they get, that's actually going to become more important to them. So I try to give them, of course, tailored to different people's needs, but I try to give them, my perspective. That's all. And I always tell them, this is me. This is my observation. You need to speak to other people. I'm not, what I have to say is not gospel. So,
I love what you said about just being curious and approaching people who come to you for help from a place of curiosity and understanding, instead of just a one way, this was my story, this is how I did it. because everybody does, like you say, have a different motivation and a different reason for why they want to do what they do. And sometimes if you just listen, you may find out that maybe public affairs isn't the right choice now. I mean, I had somebody I was mentoring in Virginia who just will make a great public affairs officer, but there were some things that I felt she needed to brush up on first and master. And then once she has a little more time doing those things, I think she'd made a great candidate. But if I hadn't taken the time to really listen to her story and understand sort of where she was in her journey, um, it would have been as easy to say, "Oh, sure, just put in a package." But sometimes that's not the right step yet. There's maybe other
Mm-mm.
things that someone needs to do first to really get a better understanding of what it is that they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's funny because you asked me earlier about, we're talking a little bit about my surface warfare uh, career. And I always go back to it. It's so foundational of what I do now. And I just wanted to just say here, to reinforce it. For my promotion on October 1st, I actually took a select group, mostly people who came from out of town in my immediate family. And Mobile Bay, I actually rode her from Yokosuka to San Diego back in 2000, 2001. She's still here and she's still commissioned. So we walked aboard Mobile Bay. We went to the forecastle because I was the first lieutenant. And that was my initial promotion ceremony was on that ship. So, gosh, and I always look back and I marvel at our surface warfare officers, at our women today. I marvel at our submarine women. I marvel at the aviators and all that they've been able to accomplish within the past 20 years. Truly incredible. And so, for example, if somebody comes to me and they're really kind of a warfare designator, personality, I would let them know, hey, if you really want to drive the Navy, you should consider a warfare designator career field if that's what if that's what you want to do. So it
Mhm.
takes all kinds, Teresa, you know that.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you, to Dr. Demita, and I might not pronounce the last name correctly, Zweiback, Commander. She said, "Really enjoying this interview. Thank you, Captain Brugler, for sharing your journey."
Oh, thanks
And
for saying that. Yeah.
it's really important, I think, for people to share their stories like this and share their journey, because I think that just listening to somebody else's story might have a spark within you to say what you may want to do or where you want to go. What would you say are some of the best advice that your mentors gave you to get you to where you are today?
Gosh, that's another good question. I think staying at it, staying the course. I think believing in myself, sort of recognizing that I have talents and gifts that, as we kind of brushed on earlier, you the layman might not look at me and say, "Oh, she's an exemplary naval officer. She's definitely going to make O6." I don't think that's probably ever happened in my life. I don't think anybody's looked at me and said, "Oh yeah, she's definitely Navy captain material." But knowing that everybody has a piece, everybody has a very important role, and quite frankly, it's those outliers that provide the strategic advantage, and that is so true. So recognizing that and just going with your gut. If you know this is what you are supposed to be doing, then you do it 110%.
Totally agree. Oh my gosh, you're like singing my song. Yep. Nope. Totally
Love
agree,
it.
Susanna. You just you sometimes know too. I think sometimes being that different voice in the room, who can ask the hard question that nobody else wants to ask, sometimes isn't easy, but it's the right way to be, because in my view anyway, it pushes an organization forward, or it allows people the opportunity to consider a perspective that they may have missed. And I think that if more people have the courage to do that, organizations are just going to keep getting better. And then there's a
Yeah.
time and a place, and you got to pick your battles and all those things. But I do think that that's why we were put on this earth, is to make incremental changes to make society better. I mean, that to me is either you're going to get busy living or get busy dying, and that's part
Well,
of living.
evolution never stops. That's
Right.
that's a certainty. You know, you're if you're born, you're gonna die, and you're gonna evolve. Like you know,
Mhm.
those are the three certainties in life. So
Right. Well, I think we're probably going to be wrapping up here in a little bit, but I want to make sure that I touched upon anything else that you wanted to discuss, or any opportunity or story that you wanted to share that I haven't asked you about yet. Anything coming to mind?
I thank you, you know, for everything, Teresa. Thank you for being open to my story and to helping me tell it. I do want to say that I feel so grateful that I think the more challenges I've had to overcome, the more hurdles and obstacles in my way that have made things really, um, at times, seemingly difficult to get to where I really wanted to be, the more I've had opportunities to look around when I did accomplish different milestones, um, and see just how many people who have been in my corner and I didn't know it at the time. And I'm one, I now at this point in my life, I don't believe in leaving things unsaid. So I really try to reach out to people and say, hey, thank you. I know, you know, maybe you didn't hear from me from a while, but I want to say thank you for being there for me. And it's really been a humbling journey, but you made a difference for me. So thank you. And I think that is actually, it's a richness, and it's something I think some maturity naturally lends itself to really understanding how things come about. And I'm, you know, that's just something that's been humbling for me, but probably the best part of getting to where I am. It's not the accomplishment, it's the understanding that what it took beyond my own efforts for me to get here.
Right. Yeah, no one is an island. We all have people around us who help us in ways, sometimes even at the even in the moment we may not realize what they did to help us along, or make us better, but then we can look back and really understand why that situation happened, or why that difficulty arose, and then say, "Okay, well, that was the lesson that I was supposed to have at that time." So,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah.
love it. Absolutely love it. Well, Susanna, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. If people wanna reach out to you, where's the best place they can find you?
LinkedIn is a great channel to reach me. I'm on there every day, so that's I think that's probably the best place.
Awesome. Well, I will link to that in the description, and,
Mhm.
I will meet you, backstage here in a second. I'm just gonna go to a full screen, to do
Okay,
our closing. I wanna
great.
thank you so much, Susanna, and I wanna thank all of you guys for joining me tonight. Thanks for your patience on the little bit of technical difficulties we had, getting started in the previous broadcast. I will be deleting that broadcast and then just posting this one. Please be sure to subscribe to Stories of Service, and I'll see y'all next week for another episode. Have a great day. Bye bye now.